Hello everyone, welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. My name is Xenozach, and today we'll be going over the brand new Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank, the Patriot T26E5. So now you're probably looking at this tank and just noticing the screams of America all over it. However, I feel like it doesn't necessarily compare to that of the T26E4 Freedom, that Tier 8 Premium Medium Tank with the armor of a heavy, or at least puts most heavies to shame. So the Patriot was basically introduced onto PC as kind of the testing the waters type of deal with in regards to the skinned versions of tanks. Now console has constantly been releasing these over the course of the, I want to say, 2 years, with the Freedom of course being one of the most popular of the hero skinned version tanks. The Patriot, of course, still not holding back, as it shows its brightly, well, not too bright, but American enthusiast type of nature. And I always like to pay attention to the little details that Wargaming end up adding on these tanks, as they always come with a little bit different feature from their non-hero skin version, and just the paint job overall aesthetic of the tank. And again, I love watching these models in game, as they show that World of Tanks has come a long way from day one of the beta that I was able to participate in back when console first started, and HD tanks just seem that much more better and more appreciated now that we get to watch these types of tanks roll around on the battlefield. However, rather than continue rambling on and just showing you the model, let's go over some of the stats of this tank in the tank comparison. So, moving into the comparison of the Patriot, we have it stacked up against the other Tier 8 Premium American Heavy tanks. The T34, not including the Black Edition, of course they're the same tanks, and the M6A2E1, more commonly known as the Mutants. So, right away we can notice that the firepower stat on the T34 is the dominant tank here, and that is simply because the T34, out of all the other tanks, actually has a 120mm gun, comparing that to the Patriot's 90mm or the Mutant's 105. And I kind of like that, because that means that each American heavy tank, or premium heavy tank that you get, actually has a different caliber gun that you can take advantage of in different situations. So the base reload speed of the Patriot's 90mm is 7.2 seconds. On the T34 it's 15 seconds, and on the Mutant it's 11.89. So right away the Patriot starts taking its advantage with the 90mm caliber gun. Because the reload is again 7.2, the base rate of fire will be 8.33, definitely beating out the 4 rounds a minute that you get on the T34, or the 5.05 rounds a minute that you would get on the Mutant. Again, keep in mind that these are the base stats, and anything you improve upon these are of course applied over the base stats and ends up still being the same whether you apply it to different tanks. Going down, we're going to the penetration, and unfortunately for the Patriot it falls just behind the T34, which has 248mm of penetration on its AP rounds, 297mm on its APCR rounds, and 60mm on its HE rounds. That 120 definitely packs a punch, because its alpha damage is 400 on its AP and APCR, and 515 if you manage to penetrate in HE rounds. The Mutant falls behind in penetration, but it makes up for in damage. 198mm of penetration on its AP rounds, 245mm on its APCR, 53 on its HE, 320 average damage on its AP and APCR, 420 on its HE rounds. This is where I feel like the Patriot does come into its own, as the 90mm gun on this tank has 230mm of penetration on its standard APCR premium rounds. The reason I say APCR premium rounds is because normally your APCR rounds are your premium. However, on the Patriot, similar to that of the Primo Victoria, both rounds of the tank are actually APCR. Which is actually good noted here. Unfortunately, the penetration doesn't really jump up that high. From 230 on the standard APCR, you go up to 259 on its premium round. Doesn't feel like that big of a jump. Again, a 90mm caliber gun. There's only so much that it can do. 45 will be on the HE rounds. Unfortunately, 240 alpha damage on this tank, or average damage on its or APCR standard and APCR premium, definitely don't stack up to that of the T34. And if you somehow manage to penetrate, a good roll on the HE round will give you 320 average. The shell cost of a tank always helps, because this helps you in figuring out which tank has the highest profitability out of the three. The Patriot actually has relatively low ammunition costs compared to the other tanks. 255 on its standard APCR, 4,400 on its premium APCR, and 255 silver on its HE rounds. Now, comparing that to the other tanks, of course, the 120 would obviously cost more. 1,060 for its AP rounds, 4,800 for its APCR, and 900 for its HE rounds. Definitely don't help the 120mm gun. The Mutant, of course, falling into second place with 1,000 silver for its AP rounds, 4,800 for its APCR, and 680 for its HE rounds. Now, shell velocity is a little bit unique, because while the Patriot has great standard shell velocity on its standard ammunition, 1,021 meters a second is definitely great for a standard round. However, you have to take into consideration that the standard round on this tank is APCR, and that is the fastest velocity shells that we have currently, or I believe that should remain no matter what. But the APCR rounds tend to be have high shell velocity, but the penetration drops off a lot faster. However, the T34 and the Mutant end up taking it with their premium rounds, because their premium APCR rounds bump up the shell velocity to 1,181 meters a second. So that definitely kind of feels a little bit lacking as far as the Patriot goes. The 1021, again, on its premium APCR rounds, no shell velocity increase, definitely feels a bit lacking as far as those tanks goes. You could definitely pinpoint a tank with those ones on the move, whether you can get the turret. That's, of course, if you can get the turret adjusted to it. We'll get over that one later. Ammo capacity is where I think the Patriot really sets itself apart, because that just gives you more customization as far as what the loadout on your tank will be. However, as far as most people go currently, whenever I'm firing my standard rounds, people think I'm firing premium rounds because of the APCR tracer being red. However, I'm always firing standard APCR rounds rather than the premium, but you can definitely tell when you're being shot by a premium APCR, as most of the shots that you're getting fired at will penetrate with that 259 millimeters of penetration. Your AP rounds, or your standard APCR, will definitely bounce or ricochet quite a bit more often. Again, that shell drop off, the penetration drop off for that shell is definitely noticeable. Unfortunately for the T34, which I don't know if this is unfortunate or not, the T34 only carries 34 rounds. One of the things I hate about the types of tanks that carry those low ammunitions is you definitely have to adjust as to whether or not you feel like you need more premium rounds than you do standard rounds. And more often than not, people tend to like taking more, or majority of their ammunition loadout would be premium rounds. The Mutant definitely comes in second place here. 60 rounds is great for that 105, and it can definitely put in a lot more damage to the team than the Patriot can, or it might just even out as far as the average damage on the Mutant versus the Patriot. I might have to do a little bit of calculations later on to figure out which tank would come out on top in the maximum potential damage for each tank. Going down to the DPM, you can see that the Patriot definitely keeps its lead against the other Tier 8 American heavy tanks, as 1,999.2 is the highest, versus the 120 on the T34 only being able to get you up to 1,600, or on the mutant only being able to get you to 1,616, while only a 300 average damage difference there. That's definitely a little bit helpful, as the Patriot with that 90mm, you definitely want to have a great DPM on that tank. The aim time on the Patriot wins over the other two, as 2.3 seconds aim time definitely helps. The T34 with that 120 just can't get the that aim time down, but again, it has a stronger turret than most tier 8s. Because it was previously a tier 10 tank, and if you don't know about that, we'll cover that in a completely separate video. But the T34 used to be a tier 10, so the turret on it is very strong, and the aim time on that 3.4 seconds might not be a little bit more noticeable, as if you keep the hull down, you could pretty much work ridges a lot better. The mutant, unfortunately, comes into second place with 2.29 seconds of aim time. Dispersion, unfortunately for the Patriot, is actually 0.38, which I feel like it's one of its downfalls. The dispersion is definitely noticeable, especially when you want to crank up that DPM. Definitely putting either stabilizers or vents on this would help you in this, as it brings it down, I believe, to like, if I want to remember right, it was 0.36 if you put on vents, as well as Brothers in Arms. And if you really want to get it down faster, gun lane drive will help you get that. But unfortunately for it, the T34 has better dispersion at 0.35 at 100 meters. It was actually surprising to me when I was inputting this that the T34 takes that away with the larger caliber gun. Why that is, I feel like if they had increased the dispersion or decreased the dispersion on the Patriot, it would have been a little bit too much power creeped on its ends. The mutant, unfortunately, comes in last place with 0.42. The mutant very lopsided as far as the comparison, but I wanted to make sure I could cover all three tier 8 American heavy tanks, just to show you, as these are currently the only three. The T34 Black, again, is the same tank as the Patriot, and the T26E5, whether they're skinned or not, their stats are supposed to be the same, but these are the tier 3 three tier 8 heavy tanks that you can compare to, so just keep that in mind. Moving down, we have the gun elevation, and the mutant and the Patriot actually have 20 degrees of gun elevation, and fortunately for the T34, only having 15 degrees of gun elevation. Might not be able to get those people that are above you. However, all three tanks have 10 degrees of gun depression. This is one of the things I love about my American tanks, is if you can get down into a hull down position, you can definitely put your American tanks to work. Your hull traverse speed on the Patriot and turret traverse speed definitely end up helping this tank out, as you get 30 kph of hull, 38 degrees a second, or 30 degrees. Why am I saying 38? I felt like I said that more. 30 degrees a second on hull traverse speed, and 25 on the turret, definitely beating out any of the other tanks. The T34 having 22 degrees a second, and the mutant having 24. Definitely not able to keep up as far as being able to turn that tank around. And as far as the turret being able to snapshot quite a bit, that 25 degrees does help over the 18 that the T34 gets and the 23 that the mutant gets. So you can see that the mutant, as far as gun characteristics will go, will at least be a little bit better than your T34. The T34 is just a little bit sluggish, and that's one of the downfalls. You are carrying a very large caliber gun here. The mobility stat on this tank, this stat will be the Patriot with 19, beating out the 14 on the T34, and unfortunately for the mutant, coming in last place is at 13. The engine power, however, the mutant actually has the biggest engine with 960 horsepower. 810 is on the T34 and 704 is on the Patriot T26E5. However, the Patriot has better power to weight ratio, as it has 15.7 horsepower to ton, beating out the mutant's 14.34 horsepower to ton, and definitely beating out the abysmal 12.44 on the T34 American heavy tank. And that's very noticeable. The fire percent chance on all three tanks are exactly the same, 20%. So this, again, the reason I include fire percentage in these statistics is to show you that you can either swap out the fire extinguisher to either the premium consumable or just a secondary consumable, as I know some people definitely like to dive into the ability to take 2 repair kits and, you know, throw people off in game. However, that is up to your choice. I simply included in the statistics to help you out in deciding a little bit modifying your loadouts. The top forward speed on the Patriot is the best at 40.2 kph forward, beating out the 35 on the T34 and the 29 on the Mutants. In reverse, this tank also beats it out with 15 kph in reverse, beating out the 12 on the T34 and the 10 on the Mutant. However, on hard terrain, the ground resistance of the Mutant is actually the best, just slightly beating out the Patriot's 1.2 and definitely taking a little bit of a lead with the 1.4 on the T34. However, on medium and soft terrain, the Patriot ends up beating it out with 1.4 beating out the 1.7 on the T34 and the 1.49 on the Mutant. The soft terrain ground resistance is at 2.7, beating out the Mutant just slightly with 2.86, and definitely the T34, that beast tank, with 3.4 on soft. Survivability stat, the T34 with that large caliber gun, and if you can get that tank into a hull down position, definitely deserves that right, with 57 as its survivability stat. And apparently I misspoke here. The Mutant actually takes it with 59. My bad, Mutant. Apparently you're showing me up on this one. The Mutant takes it in first place with 59, the T34 with 57, and the Patriot in last with 54. And I feel like that just basically comes down to the Patriot having the lower caliber gun, because if you can't really get your gun aiming at anybody or using your armor correctly, then the Patriot pretty much falls off as far as capabilities go. The overall health or HP of each of these tanks is actually the same across the board at 1500 hit points for each tank. The overall armor thickness, however, the Mutant actually takes this one by just 1mm, starting from the lowest armor being 20mm all the way up to 229mm. And I don't know why I highlighted the T34. I guess that's just because the overall armor thickness can equal up to 229mm, so it doesn't lose out. The Patriot's overall armor thickness starts from 13mm to 203, so it's not that far behind compared to the other heavy tanks. The front hull armor, fortunately, on the Patriot is only 152mm thick. Man, I'm really stumbling on this one. Coming in second place, unfortunately, losing out to the 191 on the Mutant. And the front of the hull of the T34 is actually one of the biggest weaknesses and one of the things I didn't like about the T29, as well as the T30 and the T34. 102 on the front hull. However, on the sides of the tank, 76mm for the Patriot and 76mm for the T34 definitely help this tank, as 66 is pretty much the Mutant's weakness as far as when you're able to get on the side of the tank, you pretty much have a fairly decent chance of being able to penetrate it. The hull armor on the rear of this tank is actually 51mm across the board for all three, the Patriot, the T34, and the Mutant. But when the turret armor comes around, 191mm is what the Patriot has. 229mm is both the Mutant as well as the T34. And again, when you get those tanks into hull down positions, they're just able to take advantage of that almost impenetrable turret. On the sides of the turret, however, the T34 still has a slight advantage with 127mm of armor thickness, with the Patriot having 114 pulling a good second, and unfortunately for the Mutant definitely falling behind with only 89mm armor thickness on the sides of that turret. Keep that in mind whenever you get side shots on that tank. However, one of the more odd things about the Mutant is it actually has a great turret head in the rear, because it has 208mm of armor thickness in the back, with second place going to the T-34 at 203, and the Patriot having 127. Concealment stat, the Patriot actually takes this, and this, again, I feel is because of the skin, hero skin version that I'm comparing these tanks to. Again, the Black Edition has its own stats, but I compared it to the standard T-34. 0.12 on when stationary and 0.7 when moving give the Patriot an advantage over the other tanks in this comparison, as the Mutant actually has the worst base camo rating and all. With a 3 concealment stat, it just doesn't stand a chance in this one. Spotting stat will still go to the Patriot, as it has the highest with 84, with a base view range of 390 and the 745 base radio range that's equal to that of the T-34. However, the T-34 falls behind on its view range, as only 360 meters of view range. Definitely doesn't really help that tank, but normally you're trying to have other tanks spot for you and just let loose that 120 millimeter gun on your enemies. The Mutant actually has fairly decent for the Americans. 380 is just around where most mediums would get it at tier 8 anyway, so very good. Tank cost, of course, the Mutant is the surprising one in this, because although it was failing in most of these stats, the Mutant actually cost the least amount in this comparison at 7,500 golds, with the T-34 Standard Edition at 12,000 gold, falling into second place, and unfortunately for the Patriot, 12,440 gold, making it third place. It is definitely one of the more higher costing tanks. Again, this is because of the hero skin version, is what I am assuming that's the main factor in this. Your premium bonuses are what you buy your tanks for, and that's exactly what we're going to cover. The premium silver bonus for the Patriot is 57% on silver for the Patriot, 57% on T-34 for silver, and the 67% on the Mutant makes the Mutant the highest percentage silver bonus that you can earn. However, where the T-34 and the Mutant fall behind, as they only get 10% in experience bonus, the Patriot actually has a slight advantage with 15% added experience bonus, and that overall is the comparison for these tanks. Now again, the Patriot in this has the overall better stats because of that 90mm as far as the gun, and being that it's based on the T-32 tank, it definitely had a better advantage, as again, the T-34 was prior to the tier 10 before they had reduced it down, and before the T-110E5 and the M103 were introduced. The T-34 was the standard tier 10 heavy tank back in World of Tanks PC's days. When it was moved down to tier 8, it definitely got a little bit of a knockdown, but again, still a great tank for you to purchase. And the Mutant in this case is probably the best tank to purchase, as even with the 105 you're still able to keep a decent average damage, decent ammo capacity, a little bit better DPM than the T-34, so that might help you. But overall, the tank cost of that, as well as the premium silver bonus, would be the definite advantage. However, the Patriots added 15% experience bonus definitely helps you when picking out tanks, as I like going for not only a silver grinder, but also an XP earner just for the extra advantage. But enough of that talking, let's head over into the armor model viewer. So going into the armor model viewer in game, we're going to be going over the thick armor plating on the front mantlet here that clearly stands out, along with the two key points that I want to point out here. Now, while most of the hull is around 152 millimeters of thick armor thickness, the weak points that would normally be located on the T26E4 or the Freedom variant definitely is not a weak point on this tank. As you can see, it goes up into the 191 to 230 color scheme located right here. So along with the point right here in the center of the tank, blocking most of the shot to the weak point that is clearly visible, the turret, what is it, the turret's neck, whatever you call that, you know what, tanks, man. I really gotta like learn my tank lingo. But you can clearly see. Now, again, I'm just pointing this out. This is complete armor thickness. And one of the disappointing factors about console's armor model viewer is that they haven't updated it to actually include effective armor. So effectively, you could get around, I believe, up on the top 250 millimeters of effective armor. On the lower plate is about 180. So you can still get penetrated by most tier 8s and above tanks. Tier 7s will definitely give you a problem. Tier 9s and 10s will definitely be able to go through the side, as I believe it's only 190 millimeters along the side here. Effectively, it goes up to 230, 240. So definitely still not just barely pulling under what most tier 8s and tier 9s firing premium would be able to just eat through the turret of this tank. However, also be careful of the commander's hatch, as it is still between 121 and 160 millimeters. I believe it was 153 of effective armor right on the commander's hatch here. That would still be a weak point on top of this tank, and I definitely think they kept that mostly just to give it a balancing factor when shooting from the front. However, when you go on the sides of this tank, pretty much any angle, the same you would as a T32, most tanks will go through this comfortably with a, I would say, 80, 85 millimeters. Some 76s will definitely give it. Of course, the thick track armor on the sides of this tank will definitely be able to bounce some of the 76 millimeters, and you can definitely try angling to a certain degree, you know, side scraping and being able to absorb some of those shots. Just keep in mind that the way you want to use this tank is keeping your turret popped up on a ridge, take your shot and pull down, as those APCR rounds will definitely come in handy, but you definitely don't want to be brawling too many tanks in the future. So without further ado, let's head into the gameplay. So to the first replay I'm going to be showing you guys is of course on the Cliff Winter variant map with the T26E5 Patriot. Hopefully I put this in the correct video file. And you can see there that this is a very mixed match as far as matchmaking goes, but we do have the chances again of seeing tier 10s. This meaning that if you get into one of these matchmakings where there's not that many tier 10s, you can feel a little bit more aggressive as far as your own gameplay. The Motherland makes a wild push, but unfortunately none of my shots connect, but neither do any of his, because my team is focusing him down, and I end up getting an assisted shot for that. So myself and this TVP decided to push up into the center, trying to get the flag covered, as since there is no artillery to really pose any kind of threat to us, getting to the flag and getting shots on and spots on the enemy tanks is definitely helpful to your team in making them decide on what to do. And right away you're going to see a trollish shot. Yeah, that dispersion definitely doesn't help, or the aim time. It's good, but when you're trying to drag and just slightly adjust the turret for those shots, the aim time doesn't really help you. Well, the dispersion doesn't really help you in this. But again, look at this, right into the tracks of the IS-7, and you can see that all I'm trying to do is expose the turret of my tank, and a great shot into the IS-3, just barely making him move. Another shot tracks him. However, again, I just noticed the I-7 pushed up a little bit more than he should have, and I donked my shot right into the bottom. That IS-7, man, it's gonna be a pain to deal with, really. But he's almost lower than half health here, and I tried aiming over there with 230 millimeters of penetration. He's actually effectively armored there, so I wouldn't be able to go through him. Trying to go through that tank's front hull with this 230 millimeters definitely didn't help. However, when he over-angled, I was able to take a good shot into the tracks. However, that's where I screwed up, trying to bait him into the shots. However, again, I screwed up because trying to penetrate that tank just didn't feel possible. I really didn't want to try to push into the premium APCR rounds. I wanted to try as much using AP rounds as I would, try to keep the silver cost to a fairly good amount. Trying to snap a shot there into the STI, but not really able to. And you can see he's slowly aiming a shot. I'm trying to bait him into doing it, and He fires a great round. I believe that landed to the left of the mantlet there. I don't believe I turned the camera around, but while T-54 lightweight decides to pull around, but we managed to take him out fairly easy. Now the IS-3 Auto is definitely one of those tanks you want to compete with, as it's another tier 8 Russian premium. Down with the Russians for this for the TankBowl. The T-49 pulls the craziest thing. Gets a one shot, rolls off to his death. That's just a suicide scout as its best. It really is. So Zero's right beside me. He's in the KV4. I'm trying to help him out with the IS-3 Auto, so I go for a tracking shot as well as being able to cause some damage. This IS-3 Auto, but I make a mistake and aim for that again. 230 millimeters isn't going to really be able to go through that effectively. This STI manages to destroy my gun there. However, I was actually curious as to why I was getting shot in the side of the turret from that angle, because there should have been nothing able to directly see me, which was really confusing. It really was. I don't remember if we found out what tank that was in the end, but it was able to just barely see my tank and get shots in. So again, IS-7 trollish side, wasn't able to perfectly aim that shot. As much time as I had, I should have been able to, but me trying to rush and get shots in just didn't pay off in the end. So back and forth. Again, the best thing to do with this tank is just to expose as little bit as possible. The turret is strong, the gun mantlet is strong, not the turret itself, but the gun mantlet. So effectively just having someone blindly shoot into that turret will help you, as long as you don't overexpose yourself. So at this point we realized our teams are pretty much even because they have more heavy tanks than we do. So we decide to get a little bit greedy, I guess, in my sense. I didn't think they were going to push this aggressively on that side. As you can see, all their heavy tanks are actually pushing in, and I wanted to give a little bit of help, so I decided to pull around the other way. However, the IS-3 read me on that point. He was trying to do the same, and we end up getting well, he ended up getting a good shot on me, and me being bounced off the front of that tank. Again, the fact that the gun is good doesn't mean that the driver will be. And you can see that in haste, not perfectly aiming your shot does definitely affect you, as I end up screwing up my own shots most of the time in this tank. So the light tank ends up rushing forward, trying to get distraction, so I pull up and take a ridiculous shot again into the side of the hill. A bad shot 12T, just barely managed to distract him. IS-3 set on fire just low enough so I could give him a one shot. Now the Patriot is still up top, keep in mind, very good hull down tank as far as being able to face another Patriot, but this T-44 out in the open, and I still managed to miss that shot. Again, poor driver, not the tank's fault. As in most cases, that's what it should be. So you can see that the dispersion while moving definitely does have that effect where you just feel like it just doesn't want to aim where you shoot it. I'm trying to be a little bit careful in finishing off this T-44 because the IS-7 is pushing me. However, someone actually got rid of the Patriot on the top end. I didn't notice that. So KV4 out in the open, you can see great DPM of this tank. Whether you noticed it before, because I didn't really mention it. Great DPM of this tank. I am using the highest American commander that I had, which is a rank 10 with a plethora of perks to choose from. With vents, what was it? Vents, gun rammer, and I don't remember what the third one was. I think it was vertical stabilizer. So I was trying to improve the gun to as much as possible. Again, trying not to fire premiums. I have no idea what happened there. I really didn't. I was trying to aim for the tracks and just like went straight under the tank. But the second shot goes right into the tracks, and I was trying to get this shot. I don't think I make it in time, but I managed to get a track off. You know what? I made it in time, just the track. This one, unfortunately, just a second too late, the IS-7 gets taken out. So again, you can see that the Patriot does have very good DPM as long as you're able to keep the turret as minimally exposed as possible and just effectively putting that 90mm to work. You're able to get some decent games such as this. 3,967 damage caused with 17 penetrations. Keep that in mind now, 17. 930 damage blocked. 2,016 base experience. And this is where the negativity of my own criticism comes in. I fired 40 rounds in that game, mostly at tier 8 Russians, tier 9 Russians, and tier 10 Russians. 31 of them connected with direct hits, but only 17 of those shots actually penetrated. That doesn't scream Russian biased against this tank. I don't know what does. Assisted damage is 396 with a total damage dealt of 3,967. Again, 3 out of the 8 shots that I received was able to bounce, which has that 930. 101,891 base silver earned. Because of the low shell cost, your profitability can go up if you choose not to fire premium rounds. Supplies, of course, ran me 3,000 for the repair kit. The repairs on the tank was 7,581, so fairly low, with an overall 132,056 total silver earned. I didn't mention the ammunition cost. Again, for 40 rounds of firing, came up to 10,200 silver. The base experience on this tank is probably the highest as far as currently. I did vary between a few of the ace tankers. I believe the lowest ace tanker I got was 16,050 something, with this being of course the highest ace tanker, and the next ace tanker I got is actually following this replay, so why not just get started on that one. So another one, this time we're heading to Fisherman's Bay on the standard variant. Again, the Patriot will be able to put up a decent fight in a high tier, or in this case top tier matchmaking that you're currently seeing. This is very good matchmaking as far as the way the game should have been set up, where it's a little bit more balanced. Again, unfortunately for most people, this is a top tier matchmaking game where your tank is normally in the top with at least 5 other tier 8s. And just so we get this up, there we go. I always forget that pops up occasionally whenever I open videos. So putting the 40.2 kilometers to work here, you can see that this Patriot does go forward pretty fast, and I'm able to get into position as most mediums would be able to. I think the Russian mediums come up with that. They beat it out because I believe they go up to 50, but the mobility on this tank is nothing to be shy about. It's definitely good, and you're able to see quick spot in to my arch nemesis and that other team captain, the defender, as well as the Gornish, and the Gornish. That's right, there's 3 Gornish in that platoon. Or there was actually 2 Gornish in the platoon and 1 on the side, as well as they were pretty much following the defender straight through that. But you can see here, we're pretty much just trying to hold out, and I flunked a shot right into the side. One of the things, again, that's one of my bad habits for playing tanks is just hitting the auto aim button. Let the turret turns, disable auto aim, and fire. However, that doesn't necessarily pay off in the long run, as auto aim helps me feel like I'm turning the turret a little bit faster while I'm turning the tank itself. Doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna hit. T69, I have no idea what he was doing, but you can see that KV5 actually, I have no idea how that bounced, I really don't. But KV5, Russian biased, man. So as Russian biased as it gets, really. I think that shot bounced off if I remember it as well. So you can see I have no idea what that happened there. I was just trying to aim at the T69, get a shot in. However, I quickly noticed that the T29 went hull down and flunked a shot right into my tracks, which detract me but cause no damage. So what I do, I pull back a little bit further, drawing out the T69 and having him just enough that he becomes a one-shot. T29 decides to push forward a little bit too aggressively against myself and this Chinese. I believe this is the WZ. Which one is it? You know, I don't really know my Chinese tanks all that well. They kind of remind me of the Russian mediums anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. T34-3. There you go. Sorry about that, guy. Saint Anger. Fits the Chinese so well. Sorry, Chinese tanks. Chinese tanks. So the defender getting a shot into the side there with the Patriots 90mm definitely feels good. Gotta bring down that. And right here, they started noticing me, and I believe he tracks me. This I didn't understand at all. I got tracked as well as damage to my ammo rack, and I was trying to get out the way as fast as possible, but you can see that they were pretty much holding down this position, pushing pretty much the entire time. However, using the DPM of this tank, I'm able to sneak another shot into the SU-152 and basically go a little bit more of a hold down position as we take out the first Gornish and get prepared to face a defender and the KV5 as well as the other Gornish. And you can see he doesn't have any clear shots to my lower hull, so I can start putting this tank to work. However, for some reason, KV5 is trollish as hell because dispersion, man. Keep the tank moving. You know, the credit to where credit is due. He didn't immediately switch to his APCR rounds. Either that or he just didn't stack any. And that right there was, I believe, the or the SU-152 bouncing off the side of the turret there. But trying to stare to the bush, I wasn't able to get a clear shot into the KV5. And as long as it said red, I was trying to aim for that spot. And so I was able to get a few shots into him, just barely. But trying not to overexpose myself as the SU-152 had been reloaded at this point, and I didn't want to get one shot. You can see again, great DPM for this tank, putting down another KV5 and leaving myself with the SU-152. Another shot taken down, and the final T-43 Russian tank was spotted. So taste a bit of America as far as this goes. 5th kill, 17 penetrations. Definitely helps. And this would be the second ace tanker replay that I have. 129,471 silver earned, 3,104 experience with 2,740 damage blocked, 17 penetrations, 3,485 damage caused, 1,170 assisted damage. Again, the ace tanker was probably mostly due to the overall damage along with the assisted damage that I was able to rack up. As you can see that the ace tanker is still a 1,881, and this was after I had gotten the previous one, which was 2016 base experience. So it was very odd to me that they gave me an ace tanker, but I'm not exactly sure how the ace tanker system works, as far as it probably goes off the average highest experience earned on the tank rather than just the highest experience earned on that tank. I believe it goes slightly forward because it scrolls down for me just a little bit. It never gets old, man. Come on, just slightly. There we go. So 29 shots fired, 27 shots actually hit where I shot, and 17 penetrations with 3,485 damage dealt, 1,170 damage assisted, 1 enemy detected, 8 enemies damaged but 5 destroyed, Total damage received 1,202. 12 shots received, and 8 of those have bounced, will give me 2,740 damage blocked in total. 98,062 silver, base silver earned. Ammunition cost was 7,395. So again, that is for 29 rounds, 7,395. The low ammunition cost for this tank definitely helps in the profitability. 7,227 for the repair cost, leaving me again with the total silver earned as 129,471. Again, the experience earned is 1,881 with a 282 additional premium vehicle bonus, giving me, along with the premium multiplier and the daily bonus, 3,104 experience earned for this game. So, as far as the Patriot goes, is the tank worth it? Well, heck yeah. The Patriot is a great addition to console, and I know it's one of the most requested tanks for 2017. I was jumping back a few years for 2017, and it's great to see that it finally made its way on the console this early on into the year. Can only look forward to what they have planned released over the next course of the year. Hopefully, it just keeps on getting better and better from here. As far as the tank goes, the Patriot is great as long as you get into those hold down positions, and every time you take a shot with that 90mm, you pull back down using the DPM to its utmost effectiveness of just taking a shot, pulling back down. You're able to get that tank to work and slowly but surely whittle down your opponent's hit points. Now, one of the things, unfortunately, I feel is the downside to it is the 240 average damage that the tank gets on the 90mm. It could have been bumped up to 250 or 260. Might have helped it a little bit, but I get what they were going for. Better DPM on this tank. It was still a great route for it, and it feels great. As far as which nation I'm hoping for the TankBowl, it's American, and I'm planning on playing the Patriot throughout most of the TankBowl in the TankBowl games that I play. Hopefully you guys are with me in the team going for Team America. Don't worry about it. The Object 252U's Defenders tank review is coming up right after this, so you'll have something more to look forward to, as that tank comparison and tank review should interest you a little bit more in helping you decide which nation to go for in the end. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like down below if you did, dislike if you didn't, comment below on anything or any questions you have, or anything that you didn't really enjoy about it. Again, I'm looking for overall improvements to what I can do to make these tank reviews a little bit shorter, as well as any improvements or statistics that you guys want me to include in any of them. Hope you guys enjoyed the video again. I'll catch you guys next time.